Yo, 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 it's Godswill back again with another episode. We're on episode 104, and I brought one of my longtime friends, Lee Henry. We've known each other since middle school, right? I guess it's wow, almost 20 years that we've known each other, huh?
Yeah, sixth grade, if I recall correctly. And I do want to give a big shout out to the editor of Godswill's podcast here for, I'm assuming, editing in the Snake Eater theme, which I requested be played as my kind of walk-up song.
I'll see what we can do. Usually you know what? I haven't had an ass like that, but I'll do it. Fuck it. Why not?
All right. I'll pay for it. It's
all right.
99 cents, I hope.
But,
although now that we have the remake coming, maybe it's actually premium.
I hope. So I don't really have a lot of hopes for that, honestly. I do. I even put in my wish list last night. I was like, ooh, this could be pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Konami, it's such a bummer these days, And
yeah, it's tricky. And it's weird, as primarily I would say film is my, big medium, and movies and remakes, reboots, it's just, I'm real sick of it. It's starting to really upset me.
Yeah.
But on the game side, it's a great way to play things we were either too young to play or too young to actually understand when we played, which is definitely the case, I'm assuming, for Metal Gear Solid 3.
Oh, absolutely. I think, because also the only way you can play it right now is still just on PS3.
Do they have an online? I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
But I don't have a PS3. There's no way.
Yeah, I think you can stream it on your PS4, PS5. You have to have one of those accounts, PS Now, I think. But no one has that. So I don't know. But yeah, for me, I'm even trying to. One of my goals this year is to try to 100% all of the games, at least. So I did for Metal Gear Solid 2. Did for 5 and Peacemaker, and then right now I'm trying to go for 3 and 4. So yeah, it's a lot, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the new generation now to enjoy it, especially just as you said. I think we were too young to enjoy it back in 2000s when it came out. Now is a perfect time. About AI and technology. I can get into this Metal Gear shit all day, honestly. So
yeah.
I'll say. But you said that you're tired of remakes in movies and theater, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, it's a combo, right? I'm a lifelong comic book reader, specifically a Marvel Comics reader. Having said that, I feel like we've done it. I feel like after Endgame, ever since then, there's been a couple of like Shang-Chi was an incredible movie worth watching. But, really, I feel like we're in a pretty steep decline, and we've seen just how devastating it is to the studio filmmaking industry. You're always going to have talented people get together to make great work. Fun fact, this past year's Academy Awards, the Best Picture winner, Everything Everywhere All at Once, is it was a studio A24, which is, the heavy hitter among the small hitters.
Yeah.
And
it is small. I guess now that one sort of boosted it up to a bigger hitter, right?
Well, it's so tricky because box office doesn't mean anything anymore. Mm-hmm. It's kind of in 2005-ish when iTunes was officially a thing, and artists had to be all right, well, we're never going to make money from selling music again. We just have to tour all the time, and we're having to make that pivot with streaming. But the cool thing about, I think, the one good thing in all of this is that we've had some really incredible art come out of the move away from looking to studios to put out good stuff. And while I think that is training audience habits very negatively, i.e., I will see 3 movies a year, right? I will take my kids to a cartoon movie. That's reductive, but I don't care. I will go to one of the Marvel movies, the one that I like, that has the guy that my wife likes or the girl that I like, whatever it is.
Yes.
Also heteronormative coming from a gay dude, whatever. We'll continue. And then the whatever capital A, capital M action movie that Tom Cruise is starring in. And I think that's really bad.
Yeah, that's a good point, honestly. Although... Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, people are seeing less movies. Although I guess it feels sort of the same to me. Were people in the back of the day going to more experimental movies, right? I don't know.
Yeah, the cult hit is it's kind of a misleading term because cult hit implies that it eventually made money. That's not really a thing. They almost always tanked, and even really good movies tank all the time. again, the Academy Awards kind of stuff is my forte, and it's so
I definitely want to ask you a ton about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But AMPAS, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, they are the Oscars run on ABC, which is owned by Disney, like 70% of all media production in the United States, by the way. And they have an incredible pressure put on them to nominate Disney's movies. And obviously Disney is increasing the likelihood of that by buying everything in sight. But there was a thing a few years ago after, I think it was the year after Moonlight won Best Picture, which, incredible choice. That was great then. And
I definitely want to talk about that situation because I think about that all the time.
I do too. It's like it's a very good. So I watch Kill Bill when I'm feeling really down and I don't feel like I can do anything, but it just gives me this like, you can come back from the worst thing possible and still stomp on necks until you get to where you need to be.
There we go. That's a good one right there.
I don't know. It's weird, but I guess it's because I like kung fu movies. But it just always
really
hits the spot.
Actually, I didn't know that about you.
Oh yeah, since
I'm learning new things. Yeah, like that's pretty cool. Like because I mean for me, I always think with Kill Bill. I think about Kill Bill quite a bit. Like moving your big toe to getting everything that you want, right? Like the revenge and going from vegetable to bam. And like just off of sheer willpower, like I think about that, especially like these days. I feel like everybody is like out of it. Everybody's tired. Everybody. I feel bad for everybody. I feel like the whole world has a fog going on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I think that one for me. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I bet it's true for any kind of nerd, and I use the word nerd to just mean very passionate about a specific thing.
Yeah.
And for film nerds, especially guys, there's a real cycle, right? Of like 16 to 20, you're getting into movies, and so it has to be ultra violent, has to be super dark, it has to be super gritty. Yeah. And then you get a little older and you're like, well, no, it just has to be art house. It has to be about something important or made by someone important or, really stodgy and feeling like you're taking your medicine. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I started to realize, like, no, that's really just an immature way of looking at things, right? The whole point is Roger Ebert had this great line of he'd given a 4-star review to Dumb and Dumber when it came out, which was his A+ equivalent.
4 out of 5, right? Yeah.
No,
or
out of 4.
Oh, yeah. That's really cool. Okay.
And and he and people were like giving him flack for it, and he said, look, it is not Dumb and Dumber's job to be, and he named whatever heavy drama came out that year. It is Dumb and Dumber's job to tell the story that Dumb and Dumber is trying to tell, and it fulfilled that function perfectly. And then he also, like, really to rub it in their face, did like a serious deconstruction of the scene where they trick that kid into they sell him a dead parakeet and he's blind, and so he so he does this great like it's like he's writing about the bicycle thieves or umbrellas of Cherbourg, but he's writing about Dumb and Dumber, and it was just, I love that guy, and he was not afraid to do a fuck you when anyone put their nose too high in the air, because that's important.
About. Yeah, I feel like so many people are like, if it's not like the most highfalutin thing of all time, and if it's just constantly not the most highfalutin thing of all time, is not good. And I think that's a bummer because there's so many things in between. Like what was the movie I just saw on a plane? I just saw also, that's where I see most of my movies because I don't have anywhere else to go. I did. I know. Like,
it's okay.
I know.
I'm making, for the audience, I'm making the face that I assume Christopher Nolan makes when he sees people watch his movies on phones on the subway. Just want to reach through this computer.
I've gotten in trouble for that. I watched Gravity on a plane. I watched. I know. I'm sorry. I watched. what was the Pocahontas movie?
The New World?
No, not Pocahontas, but like the blue people.
It is
Avatar. There we go.
I think you mean Fern Gully.
There we go.
Fern Gully 3, also known as Avatar 2. Yeah,
right. Now, I'm actually even talking about Avatar 1. I watched it on a phone. Yeah, I'm bad at this. Like, I'm trying. I want to go see Oppenheimer in 70 millimeters, so I'm gonna make everyone proud.
I would highly recommend the biggest, loudest option possible for Oppenheimer. And it is not for me to say this and that, right? I do think that like it is a medium that's designed to be seen in public. It is a medium that is both in terms of the projection and like the distribution of it. You want a big screen so you can absorb all of this information a lot more easily than in, just a TV at home. And then it's an art form that is not like television. There's not commercial breaks. And so to me, and I hope this doesn't come off as gatekeepery, but whatever. it is not a great way to watch a movie, especially one you haven't seen before, to be pausing every 5 minutes to go to the bathroom or to be on your phone the whole time. And that is, I'm saying that because I, will miss a movie I love. I'll be missing half of it because I'm texting or,
Yeah. I tried to show my mom Everything Everywhere All at Once, like a month ago. But she was on a phone call half the time. She was like, just keep going, just keep going. I'm like, oh no. I was already scared to show my mom. Like, I don't think she could have handled. I feel like, thank God she missed like some of those scenes, like the dildo scene. But
good, nice wordplay there.
But at the same time, I'm just sad that she missed the whole movie. I was like, no, this is about. But also, I think like this sort of dimensional thing, like sort of went over her head, anyways. And maybe I should have warmed her up with like more. I guess I don't know what type of movies, movies about dimensional types, I guess. I don't know. But I agree with you. Although, yeah, I guess usually like I like to be like in a spot where like I don't have anywhere to be and like I can focus on this movie. Although like I keep getting distracted, like I'm trying to multitask. I'm doing such a bad job, but I'm trying to make people proud by watching more movies. I watched Florida Project like 2 nights ago.
Hey, that's a good one.
Yeah. Like I've been told a year ago to go watch that, and I finally made it happen. Although that movie sort of bothered me because it's just like it's so hard for me to see people make bad decisions constantly over and over again, and it's just like, but you're young and dumb. What can I say?
Yeah. I've been at this job I'm in now. I'm working with people who are. We're 31. Like they're significantly younger than us. And it's like I had it was last September. I went to see the Chicks, formerly known as the Dixie Chicks, in Red Rocks in
they changed their
Colorado.
Name?
Yeah, they did a couple years ago. Yeah,
I guess they don't want to be Confederate adjacent, I guess.
Yeah, and as a lover of like language in terms of just like writing and sonics and stuff, the name the Chicks is a very bad name for a band, and the name the Dixie Chicks it's got a great sound to it. The word sounds good, but like we're in a time when that would just distract people, and it's a shame because their whole thing is
against that, right?
Well, and also just like they did a country pop album, but like the songs are incredibly deep and potent, but they just sound like cotton candy, and they kept doing stuff like that. But I was there, and I got to have this incredible experience. We can cut this out if this isn't supposed to be included. I did mushrooms for the first time.
Hey.
And I was with 2 of our high school classmates that I will tell you after, so I don't out them.
Yeah, for sure. For me, it's cool as long as it's cool with you. Like I could take it out if you want. But how was it?
Oh, it was great. It was the first time in my life that I'd actually been to a show where I knew every word of every song. Wow. And it was just a really great experience.
That's interesting.
Oh, yes. I have a lot of
I guess grew up with it, right?
They're all from West Texas, which is where my family hails from, and it's a place full of people who used to live in a world where your actions were everything, and I think it is a place that has really been reversed, where you really have to be virtue signaling in the conservative direction, But the reason I bring it up is because I was telling people at work at lunch, the week after I got back or something, about how great it was. And I said, and they made some jokes about kind of how they were the first musicians to really get canceled in the modern age. And so this young person who works with me, she's like 24. She said, oh, well, what happened? And I told the whole story, which SparkNotes version is they were performing in London the week after we invaded Iraq illegally and under false pretenses, by the way.
Yeah.
And she's all they said. Natalie Maines, the lead singer, said, well, we know it's a weird time to be probably seeing some Americans perform. I just want you to know that we're ashamed the president's from Texas, referring to good old W. And it got so bad that there's a documentary about it called Shut Up and Sing, and they had death threats. It completely killed their careers.
Dang.
And they scraped together all the money that they had, basically, and they recorded one last album, and they won 7 Grammys, including Album of the Year a couple of years later, which was great. But I said all that, and the girl just goes, that's all they did? And I was like, yeah, she's right. That's nothing.
It's like, yeah, you're not wrong. You're like, wow, I thought we were more sensitive now than then, but maybe you're right.
It's a moving target,
Yeah, that's a true point. Wow. I mean, shit, man. You want to get into some politics? Like, fuck it. I'll get into it. Yeah. Like, because for me, I guess my biggest thing is like, I'm wondering, like, what do conservatives want? Like, what are they trying to like help? Like, I'd be fine with them if they were like, oh, we want to focus on this, let's focus on our homeless veterans. Dope. Let's go do that, Go focus like on something that's positive, right? You would think that they'd be like about the the nature, we all want to be, back to primordial man or whatever, I guess,
Yeah.
They don't want to protect it.
Caveman and cavewoman, not caveman and caveman.
Is that, it's like, I was even just thinking, like, because I try to read the Bible like daily, like trying to keep some semblance of being good. And like I'm mad because like they stick so much against like LGBT, blah, 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 all that, right? But it's like the Bible didn't even say anything really that much about it. It's like they're talking about, the whole thing about Sodom and Gomorrah is like, hey, these people in the city are trying to gang rape, like visitors, like versus anything else, but we're stuck like on like this little thing. I guess it makes me mad because like these people call themselves Christians, or just like trying to use their evidence against them, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to see like what is it that we can work on? What is it that like get these people out of this cult mindset of just we just got to go against whatever you say the other party says, right? I don't know. I'm just so disappointed that it's like what is it that's like even like beneficial that they're like looking for, and like it sort of bums me out that like it's becoming more of a worldwide thing, like hearing Nazis come back.
Yeah.
Are we screwed, Lee?
I'm gonna answer both your questions, and it'll take a bit, but I do have an answer to that.
Okay.
So I don't think that the people who say these things and make these decisions
are
believe
necessarily
in anything.
malicious.
Well, no, they are. I don't think that Mitch McConnell cares about abortion. I don't think he cares about unborn children. I don't think Ted Cruz cares about the threat to marriage. Certainly not, because he let, true fact, look it up, Donald Trump called his wife uglier than a dog on national TV and in social media, and he still sucked his dick on national TV just because. Yeah, and I mean, look what happened. So it goes back to Nixon. Independent of the Watergate stuff, I'm sure and we're getting into conspiracy theory territory, guys. It's going to be crunchy. It's going to be great.
This is what I live for on this podcast.
So, he came up with this idea of the Southern strategy, which was LBJ. He's my favorite president, but I will admit this, one of the main reasons he had for fighting so hard for the Equal Rights Amendment was because he knew that if he got it passed, then Black voters would vote Democrat. And I mean, in fairness, that's what you're going to do, right?
Yes, like, because for me, I'm like, everyone like it says you have to be like altruistic. And I'm just like, no one's altruistic. It's like, look, if you do a good thing for like a reason, cool. Like everyone's like, you didn't do it because you love Black people.
Well, yeah, whatever.
I'm just like, whatever, y'all. Anyways.
Yeah. So all that to say, like, Nixon's response to that 2 or 4 years later after he was in office was this thing called the Southern Strategy, and the TLDR on it is if we can convince both the overt and covert racists across America that Democrat equals Black, and then we tie in all these other causes, that's a huge voting block. And then you combine that with the mass incarceration of Black Americans for super tiny drug crimes. And what does that mean, right? You're convicted of a felony. You can't vote again.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a kid selling crack to feed your fucking family, and you can't vote for the rest of your life. But you can still serve in the military or be drafted if they chose to draft, by the way. But all that to say, like, I think that the people who are... God, this is tricky, because I do not think the Illuminati is a real thing. But I think the military-industrial complex is a real thing. And I do think that we live in a society where the incredibly rich people are not the loud ones. They're the ones that we don't know about, and they're the ones that not pick the president, any of that stuff, but they do have an agenda, and they do it in various ways. And the best recent example is there's a really good limited series that came out a few months ago on Amazon Prime. It's a documentary called Shiny Happy People. And it's about the Duggar family, which were those like 20-kid reality show Christian people. But it really is about the movement that they belong to. And they're all based in Arkansas, and the core tenet of the movement is this thing called the umbrella of authority. So the father runs the house, the wife is his right-hand woman and is not able to question him. And every female child lives under that umbrella until they get married and are passed to another man who believes in the same thing. What does that mean? Well, you're getting homeschooled, so you don't even have the capacity to understand that you don't know all of these things, or that you're learning completely false things. You don't have these skills to break away, even if you do somehow realize it. You don't know how to get a job. You don't know how money works. You literally don't know how currency works. all this stuff, and it combines perfectly with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is really just she is killing the game as far as being a monstrous Republican leader right now as the governor of Arkansas. She repealed 2 over a century old child labor laws, so now it is legal for 12-year-olds to, with parental permission, work and at night shifts in slaughterhouses, and it is legal for kids who are already working a job in school to petition to work a second job while they're in school. And by that, I mean K-12. I don't mean college. So what does all that say, right? It says you have built a system. And what I think is interesting about this example, right, is that this is Arkansas, and specifically with this stuff we're talking about, we're only talking about whites manipulating whites and all this stuff. And the reason I bring it up is because if you deliberately allow your state to be last in education, then it suddenly does not become important to people who aren't getting education to get it, or to not even know that it's a real thing, or they think they can get it at home, but really what they're getting is brainwashing. And then you also have a society that doesn't believe in contraception and that has a thing rooted in the Bible. They call it the quiver full idea, but it was a line, I think God said to Abraham about let Israel's quiver be full to bursting, something like that. And basically, that's the idea of you got to have as many kids as you can, as often as you can, because then you have a state, right? So what does this mean? You have a replicating workforce that is completely unable to question anything that you do. And now you can have them working for you for pennies on the dollar at 12 years old. And then you add everything else into that. And so the answer to the first question is, these people are not true believers. They are working for someone, or really working for themselves, and they just don't care about the consequences of their actions. Like, the reason you demonize abortion is because it's an easy thing to point to. It's an easy boogeyman. Same thing with LGBT people, specifically trans people, right? There's not been a single documented case in the history of the United States of a trans person attacking a child in a bathroom. But it's a perfect boogeyman for some fucking moron shit kicker in East Texas who doesn't even necessarily watch Fox News because their TV probably didn't work. But it's like, well, I've never seen that before and I don't like it. And then one friend of theirs who does watch TV is like, oh, well, yeah, that they go around and do this. And like, oh, well, yeah, we're never going to allow that. And then I think in immigrants, I mean, we're seeing the same thing right now. Fun fact.
It horribly hurts me what Abbott's doing about like migrants and immigrants and refugees. It just like the spiked what is it, the barbed wire things in the wire, like that's so horrible.
And the Houston Chronicle, which, by the way, support your local newspaper. You don't have to read it, but buy a subscription. It's worth it. We need journalism. But they were the ones who broke that story, and they had the videos of people pushing these migrants with children on their backs back into the wire. And Greg Abbott sued them not to take the story down, but just to take the video down, because he knows that if you show that to enough well-meaning, suburb kind of not really conservative, just white housewives who don't really think about this stuff, if you show them that image enough, they will break. Same thing with the grab them by the pussy video. If the Dems had actually worked a lot harder with that, I think, and really just run it every hour on the hour, every station in America, I think that even with all of the polite word mishigas on both sides, it would have gone a different way. And
it bums me out.
Yeah,
it bums me out how weak Democrats are. Like, I can't stop thinking about Super Tuesday. Like, the moment I feel like everyone just stopped caring about politics again,
Yeah, every 4 years, because, and this is a thing I'm very much complicit in, right? I'm a white dude. I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm gay, but like I live in Austin, so, and even if I lived in Dallas still, it'd be fine to an extent. But like, so it's easy for me to forget it in between. But the most important and impactful election on everyday life in America is happening in the state legislature. And it's really, that's where this scary stuff like repealing child labor laws, like, lowering the draft age to 16, which is up in a couple states right now. And they're just getting away with crazy stuff because CNN wants to cover Cardi B throwing a water bottle or a mic at somebody. I didn't really follow the story because I was so mad that they were only covering it.
Yeah, for real. I mean, like, there's so many bullshit stories that are going on, and it's just sort of like we don't even have both sides of what happened. I mean, I heard even that Cardi B thing, she told people to spray her with water because it was hot. We don't have the full story. Yeah. People are just stoking fears or anger at people that are easy to stoke fear and anger against. And honestly, like, you're very right. It's like we are getting like very distracted from the issues. Like it really chafes me, honestly, like just thinking like how many things we need to be fixing or just like at least starting to talk about it. It's crazy to me that people are still denying climate change. And it's just like, don't you feel this? Don't you not
Yeah.
see? At least even at the very worst, you don't want to help the earth. You don't think we can change anything.
Which, by the way, is a Christian tenet, just like anything else. Yeah,
I'm saying, I'm like, aren't we told to like take care of the earth? Like hell, like we didn't have cars until 100 years ago. Like, are you saying we can't innovate better? It's like, didn't we watch the Jetsons talking about flying cars and all that shit?
Yeah.
And we're just okay. We're just, let's keep having the same, blah, 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 big giant trucks, I guess, right? I don't know. I'm just so disappointed.
I like to, anytime I see one of those, by the way, that tears by, I love to roll down my window and just shout, "Your penis is so big! It's so big!" Yeah, but
stay safe also out there because Texas got guns.
Yeah, that's true. But the big question you asked, are we screwed? The thing I find that helps with that, because specifically with the climate, I get in that headspace a lot of like, what is the point of anything I'm doing, because we're all going to get vaporized in the next 20 years. I certainly don't know that I want to have like a kid or whatever, like all that stuff. But the way I kind of think about it is there's this ideal of dialectical thinking, which is the idea that you can hold two things as true at once. So I kind of think of it as layers of reality, and that sounds hippy-dippy, but I don't think it actually is in practice. Really, you have the world we're in now where it's a dumpster fire, almost literally, actually not almost, because it was 109 today at one point, and
wow,
I want to die. By the way, I hope you're happy. I turned my AC off because it is so loud, because it's blowing all the time. So if I pass out at any point, it's not from being overcome with emotion. It's from heat stroke.
I appreciate you. Dang, like, I mean, if you need to turn back on, feel free. I mean,
no, I've got the good old overhead fan going.
Hey, there we go. Good. Yeah, I got mine, but also I'm in California, so it's not, I know. Hey, look, first off, I actually like the heat, so you won't hear me complain. And when it's cold, you will hear me bitch and moan. But
well, I guess you won't have to worry about that for quite a while, if ever.
Man.
Well, I just meant the California thing, but also
okay, okay. I thought you meant like ice caps and everything. I was like, oh, we are screwed. But yeah, continue with the layers. Yeah, like the world.
So you have that. It's it's awful. Like, what does anything we do matter? But then you have this thing of, if I have the values that any individual has or whatever, I have to choose to accept that, and then also operate in a world where maybe the worst thing doesn't happen. And I think you have to kind of choose to apply these different layers at different times. It's kind of like code switching, but on an individual philosophical level. It's like, what is going to be the most functional thing for me in this moment?
Interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're reading the Bible because you want to be a good person. I won't say practicing, because I mainly just say it to be cool at parties, and it actually I got called on it recently, and it was really embarrassing. But I mostly identify as a Buddhist. Here's my Tibetan singing bowl, which I've done a couple of stints in various facilities and things that really caused me to learn how to be introspective in a positive way. And now I just am on this kind of good humanist kick that I really love, of like, it is so stupid to ever believe, no matter how smart you are or that you think you are, that you know everything and that everything that you believe is right. Ergo, you've got to read, you've got to talk, you've got to listen. You just got to learn. And that's really all I know, right? Like, the two things I know about life are, I want to learn everything that I can, and I want to see as much of the planet as I can before I die. Those are the two things that I am sure about. Yeah. And it's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that, because, I mean, one, those are things you can control. Two, it's just sort of like, that's what I think life is, right? It's like, at least to a point, you're happy, right? You can do whatever range you want, but at the same time, why not keep taking it? There's so many things that keep on changing about the world, and I really actually liked all this multiverse talk that we've been having, with movies like Everywhere, Everything, All at Once. Like I constantly think about like just like the different paths of life that like I could have been on. Like I was supposed to be a doctor. I have dreads.
Well, let's put quotes on that. Supposed to be.
At least that's what. Yeah, you're right. Actually, you're very right. Like, where it's like, what am I supposed to be? Right?
That's shame language, dude.
Yeah. I guess because I think about like for sure, like my parents pushing me to do that, right? And actually, it is something I did want to do. Like I wasn't against it. I just watched The Nick recently.
Good show.
Yeah, like season 1. And I really enjoyed it. I'm glad that I was born here. Like, I keep thinking, like, what if I was born in 1900?
Yeah.
or born in Nigeria, like things would be very different. Because both my parents are from Nigeria, and like they were the only ones in their families. Dad's first out of 8, mom's 12 out of 13, and they're the only ones to have come here actually, or at least first. And then I don't know, like or at least I could have been a doctor, right? Like there's so many other ways of life that I could have been on, and at least I really enjoy like what I'm doing right now. I
Yeah,
like,
same. Took a
yeah,
long
good,
time, but yeah.
good. Like actually, yeah, I did want to see like, yeah, how are you? Like I was actually thinking like I haven't, you do like I like everything you've been saying. Like it sounds also very centered, like in
Yeah.
like just as you said, like I think like that's like sort of like the meaning of life, the sort of like a humanist, like do the best you can in your world,
Mhm.
but then also allow for change and growth to happen too, right?
Yeah, there's an incredibly destructive version of self-improvement culture, right? It is,
Mhm.
I have to be this shape so I can do these things, or I have to have this level of income to do these things. And
Mm.
that's not what it really is about to me. It is like my core philosophy is exactly what you were just talking about. I just have to make myself the best person I can be and live according to my values, which I'm still kind of figuring out, but we're working on it.
Right.
But then if I do that, then naturally I will, bleed those values out and put them into my work, into my relationships, into my community, and turtles all the way down. It continues, it continues, it continues. It's a great idea. I don't know if it's going to happen, and I certainly don't know that I'm willing to do anything more active than that as far as improving the world around me. Although that's not true, because I work in philanthropy now, so I'm
Oh,
on the fundraising team for a medical school in Austin,
okay.
and it's actually funny that you were talking about the supposed to be a doctor thing. Is I do a lot of our scholarship stuff, so basically connecting scholarship recipients with the people who pay for those scholarships, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
incredibly rewarding because I always had this thing, and this is so uh, I think it's more common than we would think, but I would get these tensed up things of like, oh, this old fogey who's like 80 years old and was a doctor and hasn't practiced in 20 years is about to have a talk with this black woman who's 24 and is hoping to learn about dermatology, and I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen here.
I was actually about to say, it's like, how does that usually go?
It's almost exclusively they find commonalities so quickly because I think when you are in a role or pursuing a role that takes that much to get there, right? Like it's not just the 4 years of med school, it's the 3 years of residency after where you're making pennies on the dollar. So
Mm.
it's a weird thing to think of like, oh, well, as soon as a doctor gets out, it's no, they make no income for 3 years. And then
Jeez.
they have to either join a hospital and be the bottom rung of that situation, or they have to start their own practice and like any small business, not make a profit for a year and a half. But it is so fascinating that like anytime I've had that tensed up thing, those are the conversations that go the best. Like it is a real restorer in my faith in humanity, in that a lot of people are capable of finding commonalities rather than differences when they're put in the right situation. I just think the right and Rupert Murdoch, who unfortunately may go down as like the most brilliant businessman of the back half of the 20th century, because he's the Fox News guy,
Hmm.
and yeah, just like that idea of making some words just trigger words that shouldn't be. Like the idea that if you say the word black in a
Black.
room to
Yeah.
describe a black person,
Uh,
white people on the left tense up because they're
yeah.
afraid that they're going to say
They're
or
gonna
someone
call
else is
racist.
saying the wrong thing, and
Uh-huh.
white people on the right tense up because they're like, well, then I'm about to get called out or whatever. There's
Yeah.
so much
Totally,
fragility
man.
on all sides, and
Yes.
it is very heartening to see instances when that is not the case and when people
Yeah.
can actually engage with each other.
That's really dope. Like I actually that's super cool. One, that you're doing that. And then two, yeah, to also hear that, because I was thinking, I was like, does that work out? Do people, especially like, also I constantly worry about like the new generation, like I worry about them, especially like over the pandemic and like the isolation, and then TikTok being like their main sort of outlet of sorts, and yeah, I do see like the good things of TikTok, but also like, oh, like this is going badly,
Mhm.
it's cringy. But at the same time, yeah, like I am happy to hear that there is like some sort of like balance, like for like the generations like meeting. I think, because also that's something I was thinking about too, is like I feel like the kids are also isolated from like the rest of us. Like they don't have like old cartoons and old movies that they can watch sort of easily. You know, we had like Tom and Jerry and Flintstones. We weren't born in the 60s, but at least we had that. But
40s.
Yeah, 40s. Wow, shit.
Some of those.
Man.
Yep.
But in the 1900s. But you know, like, do kids today like even have that? Like, they have like a new version of Looney Tunes, but it's like, what about like the old stuff? And like, we're sort of worried about, oh no, is the old stuff too violent? And
yeah,
I sort of feel that's a bummer.
I think it's, and I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the discourse. I think there's a lot of like inherently disingenuous conversations about stuff like that. So I love Looney Tunes cartoons. I loved them as a kid, and fun fact, they are actually all on HBO Max, or I guess now it's just called Max.
Oh, yeah.
And when I say all, I mean they have done a very intelligent job of pruning out some stuff that no one needs to see anymore.
Which is fair. Yeah.
No, it is. And like as a kid, Peter Pan was one of my favorite Disney movies, and I watched that in like 2008, I remember, and was so horrified. Like there's a song in that that's just basically implying that the reason Native Americans are red-skinned is because they're all drunk. And I was like, how is this a thing, man? And,
oh, no.
But that's such a good guiding light, because I think people act like, oh, they're coming for all the culture that we loved. And I do think that there is a real element of that actually on the progressive wing of overcorrecting. But I think for almost every case that I can think of, it is very obvious when you see a thing that is old and you think there's no need that this, like, there's a surprising no one. There's a great film example that I'll use. When I was not a film major, I considered it, but the people I was in classes with, they all thought like, oh, I'm getting a film degree, ergo I'm going to be Steven Spielberg. And I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, that's not how this works. And that's not why I was there. I was just there because I love to learn.
Exactly.
And I never wanted to be a director or a filmmaker or whatever. But we watched this movie as part of the curriculum, and it was a class called The History of the Motion Picture. So it makes sense that we watched inarguably, in my opinion, so I guess still semi-arguably, this movie called Birth of a Nation, which is, when it comes to a technical aspect, like, come for me, snowflakes, it is upsetting how brilliantly made it is, because everything else is offensive. Not offensive is way too loud. Everything else is horrifying and disgusting. And but the professor, and for some more context, the plot of the movie is an adaptation of a novel called The Klansman, with a K. It wasn't written by Spike Lee, so I think you can guess what it's about. But the core premise is basically that, like, in the post-Civil War era, when blacks are given voting rights, the state House of Representatives or whatever, and I believe it takes place in Virginia, is immediately overrun with all these ridiculously horrifying stereotypes, most of them who look exactly like Samuel L. Jackson's character in Django Unchained. They all have the snowball hair. It's awful. So crime against fashion, number one. But seriously, and then, over the course of the film, the Ku Klux Klan basically is created and saves the day, and it's so horrifying. But it has editing techniques that are still used, like, de rigueur every day by every level of filmmaker, every level of television maker. And it is, if you looked at the things that were coming out around it, and even just a year or two after it, it is legitimately probably 20 years ahead of its time in its technical vision. But it is one of the most offensive things I've ever seen. And the professor who taught this class, she's a brilliant woman. I can't remember her first name. Her last name's Frick. She does a lot of film preservation work. But she gave a great lecture and was like, look, this is going to shock and horrify you, and it should. And we're watching it for that and for this, because you don't shy away from something that makes you uncomfortable. You don't put it under the rug. You read it. The idea that you can't gain anything from, the adventures of Huck Finn because it uses the N-word. It was written and takes place in the 1870s. Yes. How is that a shock?
I know.
Or when Django Unchained, which I know there's a lot of issues there, and most of them I genuinely don't have the it's not my conversation to have. But one of the most ridiculous things was, why are they saying the N-word all the time? It's on plantations, dude. It's 1830. You're not going to be like, yes, white critics. And it's just like, and there's a lot of that, and I've heard this from a lot of black friends, both IRL and on film Twitter, who will say, like, it really infuriates me when a white person overcorrects and tries to protect you.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I don't need you.
Say with Tropic Thunder, it's just sort of like, y'all, like, unless we're mad about it. Yeah, like, unless we're mad about it. Like, when we're mad, listen to us, and then, rally behind our cause. But don't like, just as you said, like, saying black and like, oh my God. And it's like, it's like, we didn't say that black is a bad word. The N-word's a bad word. What?
Yeah, there's that great Community joke where Shirley is doing the like very passive aggressive Christmas thing for everyone, and she goes, "Oh, and Annie, I didn't know you were a Jew," and she can't decide if she should switch, and she just goes, "You can say Jewish." It's so good, and that, of course, how brilliant that show is. That line is, and the like oppressive Christianity is coming from a black woman.
Yeah,
like. Brilliant show.
There was like a sort of genuine, at least to me, like a sort of genuine way that we addressed race and just sort of diversity, honestly. And it felt nice to me, like in the 90s and 2000s. And I think in the 2010s, it's like, just, and then because we're like, the whole time, like even sort of now, like
not sort of, absolutely.
Actually, absolutely right. All right now, like it bumps me out, but I can't wait till we get that balance back where it's like, it's okay, y'all. Other groups exist and it's okay to address them, Like, let's just, when they say, hey, please don't do this thing, we listen to them. Whoa, what a concept. But, and like, I was just thinking, I was actually literally thinking about this today. I love what you said about Birth of a Nation because actually I haven't seen it. I would like to see it so that way I could just be like, here's my objective thoughts about it. And it's really cool that you even said what you said about like the movie making techniques about it. But I guess for me is like, I sort of wish that we would get to a point of like, we can see bad things and we could just be like objectively like, okay, this isn't good for this reason. And my emotional state, maybe it might be like a way about the movie, but like, it's not like all the way permanently perturbed, I guess, right? Like we can wrestle with hard hitting topics without constantly feeling the need to be shielded from it, right? Because this shit happened. Like it's one thing if this shit like didn't, like even if it didn't happen, I think it's important that we sort of like wrestle with ethical values. That way we can become a better group versus like, oh my God, that's just too shocking. I can't, and then we don't want to talk about it. And then it comes back. It comes back worse than before, right?
Yeah, and I think us being unwilling to I think that the left sanitizes history too, but we usually just use that term to talk about, the Confederacy or neo-Nazis or something. I think that there's a lot of it. I just think recently someone asked me, what do you think is the most damaging thing that our generation will leave to our children? And I said, well, provided that the earth still exists. I think it is cancel culture. And what I meant by that then and what I mean about it right now. So Donald Trump being caught, Donald Trump sexually assaulting women and then getting in trouble for it. That's not cancel culture. That is consequences of actions.
Like, right,
that's how it's gone since the beginning of consciousness, right?
Right.
That is not cancel culture. It's like, how dare you, get mad at me for this thing that is a criminal act.
Right.
Yeah. But cancel culture is real if people are not interacting with art, discourse, writing of any kind or whatever in a genuine way. People, I do think, are trained by social media especially, but really our culture as a whole, I think, has really absorbed it. It's about your take. It is about, I want to be the first one to have a take about why Barbie is offensive or why Oppenheimer is offensive, both of which have happened in the past 2 weeks, which is so stupid, but whatever. Yeah, and like there was a woman, I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to, give her flack, and also I think she already has too much traffic. But she wrote an incredibly disingenuous review of the movie The Whale, which I think The Whale has a lot of problems, and I think people can have legitimate issues with it. But one of the things she was saying was, I just think it's so ridiculous that they couldn't cast a 600-pound actor to play that part. I'm sorry. And that is so perfectly illuminative of, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about in terms of just the medium you're speaking about. Because
acting,
first of all, there's acting, and that's one thing. But like,
but also, do you really want like a six? Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, like, it's even simpler than all of that.
Super obese person.
Well, yeah, exactly. A tiny studio like A24 could not afford to insure a 600-pound actor. Like, fun fact, when they made Iron Man 2, the reason that Mickey Rourke was in it is because he and Robert Downey Jr. did an Oscar roundtable together in 2008. Mickey Rourke was promoting The Wrestler, and Robert Downey Jr. was promoting his role in Tropic Thunder. Should have won the Oscar. Fight me. That's kind of a joke, but I mean, it's also a very good movie. But anyway,
I loved him still. I still love that movie. And
it's brilliant.
Yeah. So many people who are getting mad about it because of the surface level stuff. It's like, y'all, please, unless we get mad about it, chill out.
And again, that is purely people whether they be white or any other race, but I can guarantee it's almost all white people, just like hearing, oh, Robert Downey Jr. is in blackface. That is not the plot of the movie. If you watch the movie, the joke of that is that Hollywood would rather bend over backwards and tie themselves into a pretzel and pay, what is it, like, they even make a joke about it, a $30 million experimental surgery to temporarily repigment him for his searing portrayal of Lincoln Osiris, great fake name.
Yes.
And the joke is that Hollywood would do anything rather than cast a black lead in a movie. That is the joke. And Robert Downey Jr. gets it, and the movie gets it, and they have the brilliant great fake rapper name coming, Al Pacino character, Alpa space Chino, who is there to poke holes in Hollywood's, like, within the movie, their own back padding and stuff. Yeah. And I just think it's another perfect example of, like, people aren't engaging with the thing before they judge it. They just want to be able to have a judgment or to be on the right side of what they think the judgment is. So yeah, the whale thing is like, you clearly don't even know the basics of any of this. Oh, wait, the reason I was bringing that up is that Mickey Rourke was in that movie because of a passing comment of, would you do Iron Man 2? And Mickey Rourke's like, yeah, do it. Then Marvel's like, what the fuck are you doing? We can't insure that guy. He's a mess, and there's a reason he hadn't made a movie in 20 years. So Robert Downey Jr. had to pay the insurance premiums himself.
Wow.
And they still barely got it across the finish line because even though I love Mickey Rourke, he was a wreck.
Dang.
He should have won that Oscar for The Wrestler. He didn't. And it's maybe the second biggest Oscars blow for me ever, emotionally speaking. And
what's number one?
It shouldn't be that shocking, but Glenn Close losing Best Actress a few years ago, which without a doubt the greatest actress to have never won an Oscar, but a lot of people assume that she has because she's so good.
Yeah, I was like, never.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she did this incredible movie called The Wife. It's not like it's super mind-boggling, but the work is there, and of course all these people who again have not done the reading are on Twitter. Like, it's just so annoying that Hollywood's going to reward another like super Oscar baity, super like scenery chewing role. And I'm like, if you knew what the fuck you were talking about, you would see that the reason she doesn't have an Oscar is because she refused to ever do that. Like, if you watch Dangerous Liaisons or Fatal Attraction, she was a woman who was never interested in doing that. And God love her, she's a great actress, but Meryl Streep hasn't challenged herself in a really long time. But all that to say, that was one of the first years that the Academy Awards had added a lot of young people, and they just didn't watch The Wife, and so they gave it to Olivia Colman for The Favorite, who it's not a lead. She's great in it, and she's a great actress. She's not the lead of that movie. It's a lead with two women who are both nominated in supporting actress, and that's we could go all the way down. But that was just like, I didn't even say anything. I just was completely silent. I just went to my room and I shut the door. But luckily, I came back out in a few minutes because that was also the night that Parasite won Best Picture.
Oh,
so
okay. Okay.
Oh, no, wait, that was the Green Book year, so I should have stated that.
Okay. Wow.
Although, hey, I'll say this: Green Book, watchable movie, under 2 hours. Love it, baby.
Okay. Man,
I love that it's under 2 hours. I think it's a mediocre movie.
Yeah. Okay. 'Cause I heard most people said that it wasn't a good movie. Like, there's other like black focused movies that like were better.
Well, yeah, that was the year Black Klansman came out, and Spike Lee famously said every time they have a white man or a white man and a white person and a black person driving in a car together, I lose because do the right thing lost to Driving Miss Daisy, which is also an incorrect position.
That's hilarious. If you had a nickel every time, be two nickels, but that's a lot. Wow, that's funny. What has been one of your favorite years of the Oscars?
Oh boy, like recently or ever?
Ever.
So I am firmly in the camp. There are 2 years that people argue about are the best. One is I think it's 1976, and the Best Picture lineup was the original Rocky, which, even though I hate sports movies, is a great movie. Network, which is a fantastic movie about basically broadcast news, and it was the idea of for-profit news, but in 1976. And I would recommend everyone listening to this watch that movie. It's on HBO Max. Every single thing that was said in that movie as satire has become true. Assassinating people on live TV for ratings, it's happened. Deliberately propping up a faux revolutionary group in order to have cutting edge programming of, from the headlines of like, in this case, there's the funniest joke in the movie is one of the recurring characters is a leader of kind of a Black Panther chapter. And Faye Dunaway's character, who's one of the leads of the movie, convinces her basically to say, you could stay that and you're probably doing a lot of important work, or you could make a name for yourself. And so they make up together, she and this woman make up the super generic like revolutionary group. It's making fun of the group that kidnapped Patty Hearst. So it's something along the lines of the Symbionese Liberation Army. Literally means nothing. And so by the end of the movie, this woman who started as an idealist is just as greedy as everyone else. In her last scene, people are just walking by and she's in a room and she's on the phone and she goes, "I knew you were going to fuck me on my distribution rights. You think that I won't shoot some cracker in the face and then I'll come back and fuck with the man who's trying to fuck with my distribution rights." And the idea that you can come full circle and obviously it's more than this, but like the span of 2 hours on an idealist like that, I think is so prescient. But anyway, it's a great movie for a million reasons.
Okay.
So Rocky, Network, Taxi Driver, really Scorsese's first proper like I'm here, get used to it kind of thing. Of course, I'm blanking on the other two, but they are also by really good people. So that's one. But then I'm in the 2007 camp, which was the best pictures were No Country for Old Men, which won deservedly. There'll Be Blood. A lot of people like it. I watched it 4 times. I don't get it, man.
Wow.
I just, it's not for me. I fell asleep in the theater and I was a kid, but I didn't judge it for that. I was like,
yeah.
And then Michael Clayton, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. I post a lot of memes about it. My cover photo on Facebook was for a long time one of those like yard signs of "In this house we believe science is real," yada yada yada. But it's "In this house we believe." The film Michael Clayton, the 2007 film Michael Clayton, directed by Tony Gilroy, is an underrated cinematic masterpiece that deserves further appreciation in the Western canon. And I was like, yep.
Wow.
Which
okay.
one, that's just a me thing to do, but it's
I'm
accurate.
Googling that right now.
Yeah. And then Atonement, which is a really good period piece about, it's kind of the Dunkirk era, but it's not just about the Dunkirk invasion.
Okay.
And then Juno, which is a really good comedy. There are things you could have swapped in there instead, but that was the first time that I was seeing movie after movie over the course of a year. And I wasn't just thinking that was good. I was thinking, why was that good? And I remember I went back and I saw No Country for Old Men over and over and over again. And it wasn't just because there's a lot of great gun fights. There are. But it's just because I was like, what is it that they're doing that is making me so interested in this? And it took me a long time to build up my film grammar. But that was really the year that it shifted. And the fact that year has held up so well, I think really speaks to that. All 5 of those movies, listeners, are absolutely worth checking out.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you got me interested. I just started putting a list together. I'm like, I gotta check this all out.
Anytime, dude.
Yeah, like I mean, definitely. You put me on like a lot of good comics, a lot of good movies for sure. You still reading comics?
Yes, although I had to stop buying them because I kept buying them and not reading them. But I got a new iPad on Prime Day. I got one of the old ones, so like it's chugging along, but all I need it to do is be a book, so that's fine.
That's true.
Because I gave up on the physical thing because 1, it's not good for the environment. 2, I don't care about the objects, so I don't want to sell them. Like I'm not going to collect them. And there's just no room.
Yeah.
So it sucks to not support a local comic store, but it also sucks to not have a crap ton of crap around.
Right. Honestly, like I'm
already crap filled house
for real.
But yes, and the X-Men, my babies had a really rough time during the period when Disney had not yet acquired Fox, and they did this whole thing where they basically tried to kill off all the mutants in comics and turn the Inhumans into a stand-in for the mutants, and nobody bought the comics, and so they were like, "We're sorry." That South Park BP episode, "We're sorry."
That's funny.
But since then, they had this really cool sci-fi run that is finally ending, but it's very high concept. They live on an island now, and it's like not mutant superiority, but mutant independence. So it's a mutant state, and it's just very dramatic. It's like Game of Thrones, plus a lot of weird sci-fi, plus a lot of weird like future corporatist kind of stuff. Like, what does a corporation look like? Not in our terrible world, but like if we weren't all garbage monsters, what does business look like in the 21st century? Or when one power, like Wakanda in both the comics and in Black Panther, like when one country is so far beyond everyone else, and it's really good. It's worth checking out.
Okay.
Also, the first time Storm has had any good writing since the late 1980s, and she's my favorite comic book character. So
wow, also favorite. That's pretty dope. Okay, and then also we have been talking about you getting into anime. How's that been happening?
Well, it really it started because I wanted. stuff to watch, like while I ate dinner for 30 minutes that wasn't a sitcom I'd seen a billion times before. Like, I know every word to every episode of 30 Rock and Seinfeld. I should probably try to broaden it a bit.
I'm about to say, also, like, you have comfort shows, huh? Like,
oh, we all do.
I
love a pop culture comfort food.
I unfortunately, I don't think I like rewatch shows right now. I feel like I'm always just like sort of like eating like consuming like new titles because I'm always behind. Like, I don't feel like I have enough time in a way to re-enjoy like an older thing.
Yeah, well, that's actually a big thing I tried really hard a few years ago to stop doing, which is the whole you haven't seen X.
Yeah,
no one's born seeing anything.
I know.
Shut up. Like, a much more helpful way to phrase that is, oh, I think you would really like it.
Thank you. Because, like, I mean, people do that to me all the time, and I get it. I'm
Fuck
like,
'em.
yeah, right. I'm like, look, I want to. I'm trying so hard. That's why I watch movies on airplanes, But and that's also why, like, I'm trying just to, like, consume as much as possible. And people, like, for example, One Piece is my favorite. I always talk about it for sure, but I cannot fault anyone for not wanting to start One Piece because it's 1,000+ episodes. I don't blame you. That sounds so daunting to say you haven't seen One Piece, but that's not gonna get anyone to want to watch it.
How have you not sat down and watched 900 episodes of something?
What's wrong with you?
How very dare you?
You should definitely watch One Piece though.
I tried. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't dislike it. I was just like, this isn't as compelling to me as the other stuff I'm rotating between. But the anime thing, first it was just like trying to find something with cool action scenes because I like action stuff and martial arts stuff and stuff with superpowers, and there's just not a lot out there in the physical people medias.
Yeah,
and
physical people, I like that.
Yeah, and anime can scratch that itch, and so then I started doing Dragon Ball Z Kai about a month ago, and I was like, this is okay. It was really interesting to see. I think people do some people do this consciously, others do it unconsciously, but we all do it. When you are entering adolescence, right? You are like, none of us know what's going on, but I don't know that. I only know that I don't know what's going on. So I have to construct a version of myself that I feel comfortable bringing to middle school every day and all that stuff. And I just was realizing while I was watching Dragon Ball Z how much Vegeta, Prince of Saiyans, King of the Planet Vegeta, like I incorporated into kind of the armor that I built for myself. It is
really
shocking.
Then again, no, it's not the best thing to build your persona around, but at the same time,
I think that shows a lot of issues. One of my big pet peeves in any kind of media that it is very guilty of is the whole like, oh, well, we've completely changed the system in which this operates. So yeah, you were going to lose under the rules of the previous system, but because your hair changed colors, now you're breaking out of that and we started all over again. But I do like that the characters, while they're very simple, they have flaws. And I love Vegeta's complete inability to like admit that he is not the best, right?
Yes.
And like that's the classic moment in both the Cell and Majin Buu sagas where it's like, it is much more important to me that I be the one to beat this than that this evil be destroyed.
To beat the feats, yeah. Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I got through Frieza, which has always been my favorite. And then I was like, yeah, I may come back to this. We'll see. And then I got to Yu Yu Hakusho, which, as you will remember, I was a huge fan of it. I didn't have cable, so I had my grandma, who did have cable, tape all of the episodes she could on Toonami for me, and then I would just binge them at her early binging.
Wow!
But first of all, it also speaking with the like Vegeta as part of my kind of suit of armor thing, I think Yusuke Urameshi and I we just share so much in that we know the things that we're good at and we know that we'll figure it out. So I don't do a lot of strategizing. I just jump in and I'm like, okay, I'm working on it. And also he like me has the inability to see something happening and not say something about it.
Which I like that. Honestly, first of all, I love Yusuke's dialogue throughout the whole thing.
It's so funny, dude. That show is so funny.
So funny. Like I got in trouble quoting a few things, but that's a whole nother conversation. But yes, no, I love that. And also I think we need a little bit more Yusuke's. Although I like that like he can adapt on the fly like in a battle. Like, he has like such a high intelligence in that sense. Like I'm watching Bleach reading Bleach actually too. Like I'm on chapter 460. And And I'm mad at Ichigo because he doesn't ask any questions. Like, he doesn't strategize, but he's not asking any questions or doing anything different. He's just, I just got to yell louder and just go more hard into the apartment.
It's because he watched too much Dragon Ball Z as a kid. He learned from the wrong people.
Honestly, I think that's sort of well said, because yeah, Goku and Vegeta, although luckily like they have like at least more battle sense in my opinion, but
yeah, I know people overall seem to like Bleach, and I've seen it recommended by a lot of websites as like, if you want kind of the classic shonen experience of an anime, it is a good one because it's not too long, but it is long enough that everybody gets a long thing. But having watched, I guess last year, the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen, I'm like, nah, you can find it elsewhere because that's a good show.
Yeah,
and that's got all of it. That's got all of it.
I like, honestly, like shows today, people only want to be like, the classics are great, and I'm like, no, like current stuff is amazing right now. Like, I think there's just so many different genres of stuff that are great examples of genres of stuff right now that you can really enjoy. Like, I just enjoyed Oshinoko, which was about idols, like pop stars and idols getting into that industry. Like, it shows you like how the industry works, and then but through the narration and like through like the action of what's happening. There's Bocchi the Rock, which is about crippling anxiety, but like sort of powering through it to become to do what you want to do, like like I loved it. Like, things that I think were sort of outside of like my comfort zone, but I'm really enjoying it. Prison School, I think, is one of the funniest. Yeah,
that's a great name. I don't know what that means, but it's great.
Man, I want you to check it out.
Okay.
I love Prison School. It's so hilarious. I wouldn't tell everyone to go watch it, but I think if you can handle some adult humor, this one's one of the best. There's a lot of great stuff, so I'm excited for you. I can't wait to hear like more things you're going to be jumping into.
And this was significantly earlier than the kind of recent renaissance I've had, but Cowboy Bebop is one of my favorite TV shows ever, not with an anime asterisk. Like, if I was making my top 10 TV shows of all time, it's going to be in there. I own it on Blu-ray, I own it on iTunes. Like, it's just really good, and I like that it's a reminder to me that you don't have to follow a formula. Everything around it, right, was doing 800 episodes and very specific, familiar storytelling and arcs. And I remember watching it for the first time, start to finish. We were seniors in high school. Yeah, I was like 16, 17, 18, something like that.
Man.
And that episode where they accidentally trip balls on mushrooms. And I'm
yes.
Like, why is it doing this? But now I'm like, that's awesome.
Exactly.
They were like, we don't need to have a show we don't need to have every episode be kiss, kiss, bang, bang. It could just be really crazy and funny. And as a lover as well of jazz, and specifically kind of Japan's weird relationship with jazz as a genre, it's something that just gets better every time I go back to it.
I love that. I agree. And I need to do, it makes me think, I need to do I used to do Cowboy Bebop parties. I need to bring that back. So like,
just like you put an episode on, and then
we would do a jazz party based off of like the franchise of Cowboy Bebop.
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah. So
I'd go to that.
Yeah. So hey, maybe Austin, I need to bring that like around, because to hear your appreciation of it is like, okay, great. This is great. Yeah, man. Like, dude, like, I'm excited to hear about your journey, and like, also, I definitely need to be asking you about a lot more movies. I'm glad you told me about The Whale, because I was going to start that on the airplane.
It's worth watching. Just be prepared. It's tough, but it's like, it asks a lot of you, and I promise this is worth hearing. It asks a lot of you in the first 20 minutes, and I think the reason so many people quote unquote hated it, is because you have a choice in that moment to embrace that, not even uncertainty, that like that horror. It is a horrifying opening 20 minutes, very deliberately, not to gross you out, but to say, look, you're either going to be in this guy's house and life with him, or you're not. And if you don't pass the test, and that's evaluative, and I shouldn't be. If you can't make that kind of bond or that step to be like, okay, I'm just going to embrace this and really just be like, I'm not seeing this as something gross that is happening in front of me. I am seeing what this person's daily life is like. If you can make that leap, you will have a really good emotional experience. And when Brendan Fraser took that Oscar away from that fucking gay sex porn doll looking Elvis loser who still talks like Elvis because he's only done CW shows, that made me so happy. And that guy's such a nice guy, and you should rewatch The Mummy if you haven't.
I definitely want to rewatch Hulu. Mummy.
It's great. Holds up real well.
I'm glad he's getting like his shine again. Like, I was actually wondering like what happened to him, but then he
got obese.
Man. Man.
Well, he actually, this is sad. So serious trigger warning for some sexual assault stuff. He was, pretty violently and assertively groped by an incredibly drunk member of, I think it was the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, who used to vote on the Golden Globes, and they're the fake organization that, is famous for taking bribes and all that stuff. And, he reported it. Nobody believed him. And he got really depressed, and he lost his career. And he and this is his words, he really had a destructive relationship with food. And I think, not to give too much away, but I think the movie The Whale is not about obesity. I think it's about self-harm through through the medium of self-destruction, self-harm, whatever word you want to use. But anyway, so he got really out of shape, and then he just had enough people who, because he had never, said a rude thing to anyone in his life, when he kind of started putting feelers back out there, it didn't take him long to get jobs, and they weren't great stuff. He's in the Doom Patrol TV show. Like, he's just out there doing the work, and basically people were like, hey, we're just so happy to see this guy that we loved, and who was, to me, Brendan Fraser 90s movies, they are all pure joy. That is what they are. It's a warm hug, right? Blast from the Past, George of the Jungle, Mummy Returns, all that. Like, he's just, and it's, to see that kindness, have a really horrific road, and it paired perfectly well with Ke Huy Quan from Everything Everywhere, who also had an incredible start and then a horrific interlude, and pretty. I
was wondering what happened to him. Like, I mean, I'm really happy to, Everything Everywhere All at Once, my favorite character for sure. But,
he's incredible.
Yeah, but dang, but I am really happy. Actually, I'm glad you bring that up. Like, shit, I think always like, what could happen, but I guess to keep on going through it, right? Like,
it is not. I am not saying it is a choice in that being depressed is a choice. It's not. If I could choose it, I sure wouldn't be. I'd love to not be on antidepressants or whatever, but like, but at a certain point, and the movie is about this, and weirdly, I'm thinking about a lot of my favorite movies, including Gravity, which you so slandered by watching on a phone.
Sorry.
Fun fact, that is the movie I've seen most in theaters. I saw it 4 times, all of them in IMAX. I spent like over $100.
Wow.
And oh god, I promise this is related to this. One of the things that was cool about Yu Yu Hakusho is I had this moment with that, and then with an album I hadn't listened to in a long time, of like, the things that make an impact on you, they're worth revisiting, because you're not the same person when you saw it, and you've learned a lot, and you view things differently. And it's not like Yu Yu Hakusho, I'm saying, is on the same level as like whatever. But
although you can enjoy it more, I think, the more life you go through.
I would never have appreciated how funny it was as a kid.
Yeah.
But I made this list of like every film I could think of, and I cut it off at about 2019, of like every movie, every album, every book that I can think of in it. And I gave myself a time limit. I wasn't like scanning everything, because I will do that. I'm like, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. So it's like a total of 15 things, and I'm just slowly kind of re-engaging with them. But Gravity is one of those where, to me, the film is completely metaphorical. People are like, oh, well, it's inherently stupid because the satellites and the space station wouldn't be in the same orbit. Shut the fuck up! It's a movie.
Yeah,
like,
no, right.
Just go, like, why are you here if this is what you think? I saw it with 2 people who were brilliant science students at UT at the time, and they watched this really crazy, exciting action movie, and towards the end, like she has to hold her breath a long time to get out of that pod in the water and all that. And I swear, I was like, so what do you think? And one of them goes, she would never have been able to hold her breath that long. And I said, dude, she ping-ponged her escape pod that didn't have engines anymore off of a solar panel into another. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
That's the thing that bothers you.
I know, disbelief, like suspend your disbelief for a second, right?
Yeah,
like,
but there's this moment in Gravity where basically it's like, it's one thing too many, because the whole point of that movie is it's like a very horrific version of the little old lady who swallowed a fly. Like, okay, so this thing hits, so she's out of the space station because her line got tethered. She's got to get in the space station. Space station's on fire. Got to get out of the space station. Escape pod doesn't work. Got to get to another escape pod. Escape pod works. Gets stranded in the middle, like, and so on and so forth. And it's just, and at one point, she just quits. Right? She turns off the pod, and she's like, I just can't do this anymore. And there's this thing you haven't known about her this whole time, and it is a bit of a, hanging a lantern and putting a big star by it moment, where you understand what happened to her. That she's really been thinking about this whole time. And for me, that's the reason you read the movie metaphorically. It's not about this. It's about a woman recovering from the worst thing that can happen to you. It's not rape. I don't want to imply that. And it's not a thing to choose not to be sad about it. It's a thing to choose to go on anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never struggled with depression up at that point. It came out in 2014. We were 22.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never struggled with depression. I've never struggled with grief. I'd never struggled with a lot of the stuff that, we have because we're humans and that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
And I am really scared to go back to it because I don't think I've owned it on Blu-ray since it came out on Blu-ray, but I don't think I've watched it like start to finish since I saw it last in theaters, one of the 4 times. But I'm like excited too because if it taught me so much, just with retrospect, what have I not seen? What have I forgotten? How can I, continue to connect with that?
Wow.
And so it's been a really fun exercise. I would encourage everyone to like think about trying it. It doesn't have to be highfalutin. Like I didn't pick 16 books. Who has the fucking time? I picked 2 novels.
For real. It's like no one reads these days because there's just so much going on, right?
Yeah, and with TV shows, I just tried to pick a few episodes because, again, I'm not going to do
whole
that.
Series.
I love Mad Men. I've done it through twice. I don't need to do it.
Yeah.
At this moment in my life, I don't need to do it again.
Yeah. I would like to finish Mad Men. I stopped, I think, like season 3 or 4. Oh, yeah, man.
Actually, season 3 is a very understandable place to start because, like, the front half of it's really rough, but the back half of it is when it first starts to get crazy. Like, that's where the famous lawnmower incident at the Christmas party happens.
Maybe I stopped at season 3. So I need to jump that.
Okay. I'm saying you probably didn't get to that point because of the boring first half, but the second half is when it really comes alive as a show, and they start to have episodes that are just comedy episodes, and they start to pair characters together in weird ways. Mad Men, I think, is a great example of what you were talking about with One Piece, where it took me 3 runs at Mad Men to get into it. I watched the first season through the year it came out, and I was like, I hate this. It's boring. And a big part of that was a lot of straight dudes around me being like, Don Draper's awesome. And I'm like, are we watching the same show? And eventually I realized, okay, no, they're just wrong.
Yeah.
I am reading this correctly. They are wrong. He is an awful person.
Awesome.
Exactly. And that's the point of the show.
Although I think he's a marketing genius, but yeah, still.
Oh, yeah. Well, but it is kind of that anime thing of like, he always comes up with the most perfect speech at the last minute. And it's like, give me a fucking break.
Lie, honestly, it was like, oh, Superman saved the day again, right? Ooh, also, you watching the new Superman?
There's a new Superman?
Yeah, there's like an anime Superman.
Really?
Yeah.
What's it on?
It's on Max.
I will watch it because I used to hate Superman because I thought it was boring, and it turns out he's just a good person, and I was an asshole. And I really like him. So
apparently this show is supposed to be like the thing that's bringing everyone back to Superman, Superman love again. So yay. Man, but no, really well said. Like, it's making me think, like, what do I want to rewatch? I did, during the pandemic, I did rewatch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and I'm really glad I did that. Like, I saw it back when it came out in 2009, seeing it 2021, 2020, like, I think that, like, really helped me out again and be like, oh, yeah, all this, war and genocide and deeper topics about military states, like that's important. Yeah, things I missed out, like, cool, alchemy,
and
whatever.
Like church versus science versus church sanctioned science and all that stuff. Like that, it's got a lot of interesting stuff in the mix.
Ooh, okay.
Also,
I didn't. Yeah, you did Brotherhood. That's tight.
Yeah, I have 2 goddaughters. They're 14 and 15, and they have made me a massive list. In fact, I started watching Haikyuu recently because I wanted. It was like Yu Yu Hakusho. I was too involved in, but. I had the exact same experience with this cartoon about kids playing volleyball that I had with Friday Night Lights, where my brother, who we couldn't be more different people, but he has great taste generally, and he knows that he would keep saying, I promise you, it's not what you think. You should watch Friday Night Lights. And I'm like, it's about Texas high school football. I notoriously hated Texas high school football when I was in high school in Texas.
Right.
It's incredible. It is one of the best shows ever made because it's not about that. It is the only time that I've seen small town life depicted in a non-condescending way. And not only that, but in a really compelling way. And it suffered a lot from the writer's strike, and it suffered a lot from getting scrapped and then bought a couple of years later by a tiny network that no one watched. But it has a hell of a finish. My favorite marriage, I think, on TV ever is that Tammy and Coach Taylor. They're great.
Okay.
Kyle Chandler. It's the only time you'll see him not play a government official or secret agent of some kind. So worth it for that alone.
Okay. Dang, I mean, there's so many things that like I'm
You
gonna
see,
have
it
to.
never ends, and that's why you can't beat yourself up, and that's why you shouldn't beat other people up.
For real.
Because
Exactly. Like there's just so much content. I don't know how people can be bored these days because there's just so much to enjoy, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, and definitely I'm always like drowning in stuff to like consume. Like I'm trying to read manga, trying to play games, trying to watch anime, trying to watch shows, trying to watch movies, right? Shit, like I'm like I want to ask you a list of things to watch, but I'm also like do I need to watch more things? Or I mean, I definitely want to watch more things. I don't.
and
Yeah.
and I was gonna say we will do it after this. I'll happily make you a list, but I'll make it manageable. And I think the key, if you do that for someone, is you got to give them a log line of what it is. Like my goddaughter's list, when I was looking through stuff, it said haiku, and then it just said volleyball question mark next to it, which I guess I wrote. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you got to do that, and then you also, in this case, would and should not be able to take it personally if like you haven't gotten to something yet. Like, shut up, everyone. We all have a finite amount of time on this earth, right? That's the one thing we can all agree on.
Mm-hmm.
Whether the earth blows up or we just expire because we're human beings, like it is okay to say, you know what, that's not what I want to do with the 24 hours I have in this day.
Yeah.
But I this is kind of one of the things I do. So for books, because that can get overwhelming, and as a recovering English major, that was my degree. I get very ridiculous feelings of guilt of, like, oh, these are the great books in the canon that I haven't read, and there's so many. So I kind of have a rotation of a nonfiction, interesting, like historical thing that I want to read. Like I just finished a great book about the Salem witch trials called A Storm of Witchcraft, and it was really good.
Okay.
It has because it was a trial, they have all of the transcripts. So even though it's these fucking idiots being like, it's literally like in The Crucible, like they have lines in there where the judge, who's this actual authority in the land, is like, where do you see the bird that none of us can see, little girl? And she's like, oh, it's up there. Like, it's so stupid. Anyways, that's great. No. And then I will go to a more contemporary or just kind of recent fiction of some kind. Like I love detective books of any, whether they're highbrow or lowbrow. I love a Kindle because you can get your 99-cent mysteries and romance novels and no one can judge you because they don't know what you're reading. And then I go to something that is like, I'll take my medicine and I'll pick something off the list of, this is something that not only is essential, like I finally read Lolita earlier this year, and it was so good. It's not what you think it is, but it isn't.
Okay.
It's really about like the hilarious kind of unrecognized impotence of the American male, of like doing so many things because they feel inadequate, but not being able to recognize that they're doing it because they're inadequate, because they don't think they're inadequate. It's great. So that's books. And then for movies, I would say, your favorites, them, don't overthink it. Don't look at a list of the greatest movies ever made. Like, frankly, now at age 31, I'm annoyed that I have so many movies in my top 20 on Letterboxd, which is kind of the ubiquitous film Twitter thing. Or top 4, which is the one that goes by your name on Letterboxd. Like, I'm annoyed that so many of them have Academy Award nominations, because it's like, I don't want people to think that, but it's really, I mean, the correlation is only, but the correlation is really that I looked at lists when I was younger of movies to check out based on that, right? And it's not like every movie that was nominated for Best Picture I liked. Certainly not.
Yeah,
this year would be a great example of that. About 2 good ones, bunch of stinkers, and also Nope. That was the best movie I saw this year that wasn't, or last year that wasn't, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it's sad because if it wasn't, if that movie wasn't in the mix, then Nope would have been far and away like not only the best film of the year, but it is one of the best films I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And I think it's classic of the Academy to be like, okay, we've done Jordan Peele. We don't need to do it. And it's like, you were idiots. He's leveling up, dude, every time.
And like, we've been happy to over celebrate certain people, right? It's not like, oh, we gotta stop with Jordan Peele, like, unless he's like not making like hits, like
which he's not, because I think they're all incredible, and I think each one has gotten better.
Yeah,
I think Get Out it's a perfect tight thing.
Yeah,
but the scope of Us is so wild and big, and that makes it great. And then Nope I think people thought it was going to be a horror movie. I thought it was going to be a horror movie, and I don't even like aliens, but I had the time of my life. I thought it was incredible.
Yeah,
and it is in such great dialogue with the history of Black actors and the Hollywood Western. And like that idea of I am a black man who owns the means of production for this iconic white thing. So how does that fit together? Like, I don't know. It's great. It's a great movie.
That's really well said. I like that. I like that. And then one last thing before
hit me.
We had talked a little bit about Moonlight and La La Land. Yes,
Yes.
and shit, like I have to tell you my experience with Moonlight and La La Land.
Please.
Like right before I moved to, or actually it wasn't like right before, but like I went to go see my friend in San Diego when I was still living in Texas, and I was like, it was the weekend right before the Oscars, and I was like, I think La La Land's gonna win. If I was thinking like, what movie should I go watch, right? So like I was like, it was either Moonlight or La La Land, and I went to go see La La Land, and it wasn't a great experience for me.
Big
And
mistake. Huge.
yeah, for sure, for
I
sure.
don't hate it. It's fine. It's just not for me.
Yeah, I was mad honestly, like watching it. One old man was sleeping and snoring like in the theater, and I was like, you're not wrong, old man. And then like also sort of even colored like how I thought LA would be. Although I was most mad
Up its own ass.
I thought, yeah, okay. So first off, one, it stops being a musical halfway through.
Oh yeah. And none of the songs are longer than 2 minutes.
I was just sort of like, isn't this supposed to be a musical? Like, I was actually ready for a musical. And then I was just like, wait, it's just a bunch of white people complaining about whatever, like not even like really about like real shit. Like their whole lives are being coddled. Ryan Gosling has to go save jazz music from the guy who hired him.
Evil John Legend, noted hater of jazz music, John Legend.
I was like, what? And then I missed Moonlight, but I watched Moonlight eventually, but like that whole situation, and then the fact of what happened during the whole debacle of it, it just bums me out because no one's talking about Moonlight. We're all talking about La La Land still, right?
You people were, you plebs.
I guess the movie people, right?
Yeah. So it was a really interesting divide. East Coast, which the structure of the awards race season, it's sad that it is a race, but it is. Publicity's involved, constantly doing interviews, constantly having for your consideration events, bribing people, just like all this stuff. But the East Coast was so firmly, Moonlight is a great movie. La La Land is a fine movie. And the first half of the race is mainly critic societies, so that has a lot more power on the East Coast because that's where you're kind of building buzz. Is the people who are going to vote on the first awards that come out are almost all East Coast or at least Midwest based. And then as soon as we get to what I call the beauty pageant, it's the televised portion of the awards. So there's all these BS things that come before it. There's the Golden Globes, there's the SAG Awards, there's the BAFTAs, which is the British Oscars. And those are all auditions for, look how great I will look if I get up on that Oscar stage, right? It's all part of the game. It's all part of the thing.
Okay.
And so when we got to the beauty pageant part, well, it's like, yeah, obviously Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling are going to sweep. I like Ryan Gosling. I think he's an incredible dramatic actor. He's so boring in that movie. He was almost as bored as I was.
Yes.
But I was watching. So, long story short, it really kind of transcended sexuality, not race. I've never met a black person who was super into La La Land. Good on you.
Yeah.
But it really transcended gay stuff in an interesting way because, as you can imagine, LGBT films kind of fandom is in a weird place because now we actually have direct representation. Yeah. And there's the whole conversation about only gay actors should play gay roles. It is a conversation worth having. A lot of people, I think, come at it from a very stupid angle. But and I also
as we talked earlier about like, only obese people can play obese people. But
spoiler alert, I don't think that's true. I think Zachary Quinto's gay. He's a shitty actor. I don't want him to play Harvey Milk. Get out of here.
Yeah. You want the best person to do it, right? Like, but actually, I would love to have a conversation later. But that's what
I was going to say. It's like it's a great one worth having, but it would take too long.
Yeah.
But this,
I bring you back on the podcast. Like, this was a fantastic talk. But continue. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say this. I can wrap up in 2 minutes. The La La Land stuff, and you'll appreciate it. So, all that to say, gays were pretty divided. I was over getting bitter about it at that point, but I was definitely like not friendly to people who were poo-pooing Moonlight. Like, you can love La La Land, but you cannot say that this is not one of the best movies made in that decade, which it is. And I was I had people over to watch, and I was rooming with a lesbian at the time, and her girlfriend was there, and then 2 of my film gays in Austin were there, and so we're watching, and Faye Dunaway opens the envelope, La La Land. So all of us, I'm like cleaning up. I'm in the kitchen, and we're all just doing other things. And then my roommate goes, something's happening. And so we all come back, and they said, no, there's been a mistake. Moonlight, you guys won. And I love that moment so much because you get the white tears with it, right? You get the people who are doing the most over-rewarded, over-told story over and over and over. And then you get them beat by a movie that cost 20 million to make, made 30 million because America's stupid.
Yeah.
And was, entirely written, directed by, starring Black people.
Yeah.
And was also fucking great, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, Barry Jenkins, who's the warmest human being, you can see him in the background when they're doing the best picture. Well, they get up there, and also, fun fact, Brad Pitt produced that movie.
Wow.
He's a great guy, and in that respect, I know he has some issues, but like he has really elevated great
artists.
artists. Yeah, and so in the background, you can see while the main producer is like talking and stuff, Barry Jenkins is basically like freaking out, and you can just see Brad Pitt lean over and whisper something to him, and then he just goes. And then they asked him about it later, and Barry Jenkins, they were like, Barry, what did Brad Pitt whisper to you? And he said, it doesn't matter how you got here, you got here. And I love that.
Wow. Dang.
But, oh, yeah. When they revealed that it was a joke, the real punchline is that the 5 people in the gayest room in that zip code of Austin all went, what the fuck? In like perfect unison. And then it was, woo! Like we popped open more champagne. Like it was just such a great, I don't know. I just don't see how you can't see that movie. And it puts you in another person's perspective that for me, I could never have been further from in terms of the experiences I had. And to watch a piece of art that is not only a really compelling piece of art that will be taught as like to future directors for decades to come, but who made me understand completely the experience of someone whose experience could not have been more different from mine. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. Like, I guess like still, especially I guess like still, I guess like, trying to figure out like what it means to be an ally, I guess, right? And like trying to be like, what's my own sexuality, like especially like in the Black community, like where like that's a whole another topic. We'll definitely have to talk about this.
Yeah, I have some feelings about it, and I would love to pre-talk about it before we talk about it because I don't want to say something that I don't mean.
For sure.
But
I'll definitely give you like the benefit of the doubt. I mean, we've been friends. I definitely understand who you are. But yes, absolutely.
You're unlike a lot of people our age who refuse to do that. But I mean, the core thing there is, and I promise I'll shut up after this, is just like homophobia comes from a lot of places, not just white Southern evangelicals. Yes. They still do it, and they're fuckers, and I hate them.
Yeah.
But like I'm putting myself, we as good white liberals are like, it's almost like we don't treat the people we're supposed to be allies with as humans. And straight people do this to me all the time. Like someone in my life will text me like every Pride month, and I'll be like, I don't care about this. Or could you believe this anti blah 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 legislation? I'll be like, yeah,
yes.
like,
like you've seen it live through.
But like there's obviously huge bastions of homophobia, especially for men in the Black community. Like the threat of violence is so real in terms of coming out. It's a lot higher stakes, I think, in the modern era still in Black families, in Islamic communities. I mean, one of the reasons that I'm like, it drives me nuts when liberals who, again, have not done the reading will be like, it's just so awful the way that we talk about, this Muslim theocracy. And I'm like, what else is awful is that in Iran, they're still hanging gay dudes from cranes by the neck until dead, and then they leave them there in the public square like it's 1500.
Wow.
But we don't talk about that again because we're all supposed to be good little allies. And that's not true because allies challenge each other.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, shit, yeah, we got a lot to talk about next time.
Yeah, it never ends. But that's because great. You're curious. If you're not curious, you're like, wow, it's interesting. And if you're curious, it's wow. We have a lot to talk about next time.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, bro. Like there's a lot of things like you brought up, but honestly, it's been a pleasure to talk with you. I mean, you should have a podcast. I think like you
actually
really
like all white dudes. I did do one during the pandemic, and I loved doing it, but I didn't have a good concept and I didn't have a partner, so I ran out of steam. But I love it. Love doing it.
I feel you. Well, hey, anytime. I would love for you to be on the podcast more. Like, definitely, I gotta bring you back. I've been talking. I have a partner on here, Josh. Like, so maybe you gotta talk to him next time.
Is it the Josh that I know?
No, different guy.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, nice. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think so. Yeah, no. But yeah, bro, dude, this was a fantastic talk. Like,
anytime, dude.
Yeah, definitely gotta have you back because. I feel like we just started talking, but I mean, for sure, I'm gonna talk to you after this. But anyways, do you want to be found online? Or
yeah, I recently deleted some of my social media because I used to work in tech, and I just get really upset with the privacy stuff. And it's just gotten, when Threads came out, I was like, why am I participating in this?
Yeah.
I do still have what is formerly known as Twitter, an X. You can follow me there at Lee_H_Henry. I mainly tweet about film stuff, comic books sometimes, and then just culture shit. But
dope, cool. Well, bro, it was an absolute pleasure, and definitely like I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. I really did. There's so much to talk about, and I would love to hear what you guys have to think about what was said. Yeah, and also I got a lot of things to go check out. I got Michael Clayton up. At least I'm trying to figure out where you can go watch it. But I'm excited.
I'll send you a copy. It's in bargain bins all over because people are idiots.
Yeah, we missed out. I didn't even know like it was. I feel like I've always
hang on. You were 15 when it came out, and it was not a thing targeted to you, and it didn't make any money. You're fine.
Okay. Bless. Okay, I'm not part of the cost, but yeah,
part of the problem.
Yes, finally. But dude, it was an absolute pleasure, and definitely gotta bring you back on. Everyone listening, appreciate y'all. Stay dope, everyone. Peace.